Hello friends. What does it really mean when we say someone is a Cancer in bed? Do we imagine shy whispers under dim candlelight, or the intensity of tidal waves crashing in the night? Sex, for a Cancer, is not just an act, it's an ocean. It's intimacy layered with vulnerability, emotional connection, and a strong pull toward something deeper than simple physicality. But as with the moon, which rules this sign, their sexuality is ever-changing, waxing with passion, waning with sensitivity, unpredictable yet hypnotic. Let's take a dive into the Cancer sexual archetype in 7 revealing dimensions. Emotional lovers first, physical lovers second. When we talk about Cancer and sexuality, the first truth we must acknowledge is this: their approach to intimacy is fundamentally emotional. This is not the sign that can separate body from heart or see passion as a casual game. Cancer is ruled by the moon, a celestial body that governs tides, rhythms, cycles, and the unseen undercurrents of human feeling. Just as the ocean's waves rise and fall with lunar pull, Cancer's desire ebbs and flows with emotional connection. Without safety, warmth, and reassurance, they cannot unlock their most sensual self. For Cancer, sex is a love letter written not with pen and ink, but with touch, breath, and closeness. While some signs leap into intimacy as a spontaneous adventure or a physical thrill, Cancer needs to build a nest of trust before they surrender. Their heart must believe in the connection, or the body simply won't follow. This is why they are often misunderstood in a world that moves quickly, in a culture where casual encounters are celebrated. Cancer isn't prudish or shy for the sake of modesty, it's that their passion is tied to the core of who they are. To open physically without opening emotionally feels false, even wounding. Picture a partner planning a night of seduction with candles, a perfectly chosen playlist, and the most exquisite gestures of romance. For many signs, that might be enough. For Cancer, it begins long before. They want to feel cherished in the way you greeted them that morning, in the softness of your words during the day, in the reassurance that they matter to you even when the lights are off. To them, foreplay isn't confined to the bedroom, it lives in everyday tenderness. A loving glance across the dinner table, a sweet message during a busy afternoon, a protective hand on their back while walking down the street. These small but profound gestures accumulate into desire. By the time you reach the bedroom, the emotional groundwork has already paved the way for explosive physical intimacy. Cancer thrives on touch, but not just any touch. They crave the kind of touch that speaks, that communicates affection, that whispers, "You're safe here." Stroking their hair, holding them close, caressing their skin with intention, these aren't just preliminaries. They are the main language through which passion is spoken. For Cancer, reassurance through touch is essential. If a partner moves too quickly, skips over the quiet moments, or treats sex as a checklist, Cancer may close off instantly. They are highly sensitive, and any hint of coldness or disinterest sends them back into their shell, retreating where it feels safe. Yet once that safety is given, something remarkable happens. The walls dissolve, and Cancer reveals a depth that is oceanic. They give their body with the same intensity they give their heart, completely, without reservation, with a devotion that can be overwhelming to the unprepared. Lovers often remark on this intensity: the way Cancer loses themselves in the act, the way they make their partner feel like the only person in the world. This isn't an accident. For Cancer, sex is not about performance, it's about union. They are not acting out passion, they are embodying it. Every kiss, every movement, every sigh carries the weight of their emotions. This emotional first nature also means that Cancer often remembers intimacy differently than other signs. Where others might recall the setting, the daring experimentation, or the physical thrill, Cancer remembers the feeling. How they felt safe in someone's arms. How they felt understood when someone kissed them slowly. How they felt wanted when someone whispered reassurance in their ear. These memories stay with them long after the night is over, woven into their emotional history like threads of a tapestry. It's important to understand that for Cancer, sex without emotional connection isn't just unsatisfying, it can be damaging. When they feel pressured into physicality before trust has been built, they may leave the encounter feeling hollow, even used. This is why Cancers are cautious in love. They are testing, not in a manipulative way, but in a self-protective one. They want to know, can I trust you with my heart? Will you cherish me when I am vulnerable? Only when those questions are answered do they surrender completely. And that surrender is not halfway. Cancer doesn't know how to give just a portion of themselves once they've decided to open up. They give all of it, their body, their mind, their emotional currents. To their lover, this can feel intoxicating, almost overwhelming, as if swept into a tide that cannot be resisted. That is the paradox of Cancer's sexuality. It begins with caution, guardedness, and sometimes hesitation, but once unlocked, it becomes unstoppable, fierce, and all-consuming. Partners who understand this rhythm, who can be patient, tender, and consistent, discover that Cancer is not only an emotional lover but also one of the most passionate. Their devotion translates into a kind of physical generosity that makes their partner feel adored, needed, and deeply connected. They aren't lovers who take casually or selfishly, they give with an almost sacred reverence. Every kiss is meaningful, every embrace carries weight, every night together becomes another chapter in a love story. So when you think of Cancer in the realm of sex, remember this truth: they are emotional lovers first, physical lovers second. But this order is not a limitation, it is their strength. By placing emotions before physicality, they ensure that intimacy is not shallow but transformative. To be with a Cancer is to experience passion in its purest form, not as fleeting pleasure, but as an act of devotion, an expression of trust, and a binding of souls. And now, a little side note. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a thanks button right under this video, or through the donation alerts link in the description. Your support truly helps me keep creating. And of course, if you enjoy the content, please leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for being here. Now, let's continue. A hidden fire beneath a gentle surface. At first glance, Cancer may appear delicate, modest, even a little shy, as though their heart beats behind a veil of soft whispers and cautious steps. They are often described as nurturing, quiet, and reserved, someone who prioritizes warmth, family, and emotional closeness over raw displays of passion. Yet what the world often fails to see, and what only those closest to them ever discover, is that beneath this calm, careful exterior lies a fire that burns hotter than most expect. It is not a fire that blazes recklessly, like Aries' impulsive flame or Leo's dramatic bonfire. Instead, it is more like embers hidden beneath ashes, glowing steadily, waiting for the right breath of trust to ignite into a roaring blaze. This is why Cancer is often underestimated in matters of sex. At first encounter, their approach can seem almost prudish, as though intimacy is a step they are reluctant to take. But this reluctance is not rooted in fear of the act itself, it is rooted in their need for safety. They guard their inner fire because they know how intense it can be once released, and they want to be certain that whoever receives it is worthy. They do not hand over this side of themselves casually, for once it's given, it transforms everything. Picture standing on the edge of a moonlit shoreline. The water seems still, quiet, reflective. You hear nothing but the soft brush of waves against sand. But underneath that surface, powerful tides are moving, hidden currents are building, and the stillness is only an illusion. When the tide finally rises, it does so with unstoppable strength, sweeping away anything in its path. This is Cancer's hidden fire, the kind of passion that surprises precisely because it has been so carefully concealed. Sexually, this manifests in fascinating ways. Cancer is not always the initiator, at least not in the traditional sense. They may wait, watching, measuring, sensing whether the moment is right, whether the trust is strong enough. Their hesitation can be mistaken for indifference, but it is nothing of the sort. In truth, they are building the courage to let their guard fall, to show the intensity they keep tucked away. Once the intimacy door is opened, the shift can be breathtaking. Suddenly, the same Cancer who seemed cautious and reserved becomes almost primal, unafraid to embrace desire fully, unafraid to lose themselves in the depth of sensation. What makes this transformation so striking is its unpredictability. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and just as the moon cycles from new to full, their sexuality cycles between tenderness and ferocity. One night, they may approach their partner with the softness of a lullaby, gentle kisses, nurturing caresses, the kind of lovemaking that feels like being wrapped in a warm blanket of love. The next night, however, they may unleash their hunger with raw intensity, pulling their partner into a storm of passion that feels almost cathartic, as though all their hidden emotions are pouring out at once. This rhythm, the back and forth between gentle nurturing and fierce desire, can be addictive for their lovers. Few partners can truly anticipate what to expect, and that unpredictability keeps the connection alive, charged with electricity. Lovers often say that being with Cancer feels like riding emotional waves, sometimes serene, sometimes wild, but always powerful. There is no such thing as routine intimacy with Cancer, because their emotional landscape is too dynamic to allow for repetition. Yet it is important to understand where this hidden fire comes from. It is not merely physical lust, nor is it a desire to shock or impress. It is born from emotion, from the intensity of feelings Cancer carries inside. They are a deeply sensitive sign, often absorbing the emotions of others, carrying them like tides within their own soul. When intimacy arrives, it becomes a release, a channel through which they can express the intensity they cannot always put into words. Their passion is not performative, it is honest, raw, and deeply human. To be with Cancer is to understand that their sexuality cannot be measured by first impressions. The reserved exterior is not a mask but a protective shell. Beneath it lies a volcano, quiet on the surface but molten within. And once a partner is trusted enough to witness this eruption, the experience is unforgettable. Cancer's hidden fire doesn't burn quickly and fade. It lingers, smolders, and leaves a lasting impression on anyone fortunate enough to encounter it. There is also something profoundly healing about this duality. The way Cancer can move from softness to wild intensity mirrors the way love itself contains both comfort and passion, security and risk. In one moment, they are the gentle harbor where you rest, in the next, they are the storm that sweeps you away. This ability to embody both makes them rare and magnetic lovers. They remind us that true intimacy isn't one-dimensional, it is layered, complex, alive. So, while at first glance, Cancers may seem modest, reserved, or even prudish, the truth is far more captivating. Behind that gentle surface lies a force of nature, a passion that is both tender and feral, both comforting and overwhelming. To unlock it requires patience, trust, and emotional connection, but once the door is opened, there is no turning back. The shoreline may have seemed calm, but the waves were always waiting. And when they rise, they do so with a beauty and intensity that only Cancer can offer. The power of sensual imagination. For Cancer, intimacy is never just a physical act, nor is it something that begins and ends with touch alone. To them, sex lives in the space where body, mind, and emotion overlap, and one of the greatest tools they bring into that space is their imagination. Cancer is a dreamer by nature, ruled by the moon, which not only tugs at the tides of the ocean but also at the tides of the subconscious mind. They see the world through layers of symbolism, memory, and fantasy, and when they love, they cannot help but infuse intimacy with this same depth of imagination. This imaginative quality makes Cancer extraordinary in the realm of sensuality. Unlike signs who may approach passion in a straightforward, physical way, Cancer brings an artistic dimension. They sense that desire isn't just about stimulation, it's about atmosphere, anticipation, and storytelling. A partner might expect a kiss and find themselves pulled into a world where every detail feels intentional, where every glance, every word, every breath seems like part of a larger poem being written between two bodies. Cancer's creativity transforms sex from an act into an experience. One of their most striking abilities is their intuitive perception of a lover's unspoken desires. Cancer can often read signals that others miss: a pause in breath, a subtle change in body language, a longing hidden in the eyes. This is part of what makes them such attentive lovers. They don't need everything spelled out, they feel it. It's as if their imagination and intuition work together, filling in the spaces between words, crafting an understanding of what will please, comfort, or excite their partner. When their lover feels understood without explanation, the bond deepens, and the act itself becomes layered with meaning. Setting plays a huge role in this imaginative expression. For Cancer, ambiance isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. They understand, almost instinctively, that environment shapes arousal. A flickering candle is not just light, it's a signal of intimacy. Soft fabrics are not just textures, they're invitations to relax, to surrender. Music is not just sound, it's a language that guides rhythm and emotion. When you enter a Cancer's bedroom, you don't just walk into a space, you enter a sanctuary. The lighting is thoughtful, the colors comforting, the energy inviting. They craft a nest where vulnerability feels natural, where every detail works together to heighten the senses. This is where their gift for imagination truly shines. They know how to turn ordinary moments into rituals of passion. A kiss in the kitchen becomes a scene of romance when paired with laughter and warmth. A quiet night at home becomes a sensual journey when surrounded by soft lighting and whispered secrets. For Cancer, sex is never rushed or careless. It's sculpted, painted, woven like art. They carry this artistry into their gestures, often lingering longer than expected, savoring touch in ways that feel luxurious and deeply personal. But their imagination does not only manifest in ambiance, it extends into play. While outsiders may label Cancer as conservative, those who have earned their trust know a very different truth. When they feel safe, Cancer can be adventurous, exploring fantasies and role plays that might surprise their partner. They don't chase novelty for its own sake, but their curiosity is driven by emotional closeness. If they believe that trying something new will strengthen the bond or bring joy to their partner, they are often willing to experiment. Their erotic creativity comes not from lust alone, but from a desire to make the connection deeper, richer, more alive. It is also worth noting that Cancer's imagination often ties intimacy to memory. They are sentimental lovers, and they carry the echoes of past experiences with them. A certain song might transport them back to a cherished night, a familiar scent might stir their desire in unexpected ways. This gives their lovemaking a nostalgic undertone, as if each moment is linked to a larger emotional story. With them, intimacy isn't just about now, it is about the past and the future woven into the present, creating a feeling that the act is timeless. There is, however, a vulnerability in this imaginative power. Because Cancer dreams so vividly and invests so much emotion into their vision of intimacy, disappointment can cut deeply. If their carefully prepared atmosphere is ignored, if their emotional cues are dismissed, or if their attempts at creativity are met with indifference, they can feel crushed. Their sensitivity magnifies both joy and pain, and while their imagination can elevate intimacy to transcendent levels, it also means they bruise more easily when their efforts are unappreciated. Yet when their imagination is met with openness, trust, and reciprocity, the results are unforgettable. Lovers often recall not just the physical act with Cancer, but the way it felt, the sense of being transported somewhere private, personal, and almost magical. They remember the glow of candlelight, the softness of a whispered word, the way desire unfolded not just in the body but in the heart and mind. These experiences linger long after, etched into memory with a permanence that purely physical encounters rarely achieve. In the end, Cancer's power of sensual imagination is what sets them apart as lovers. They remind us that intimacy is not only about bodies colliding but about worlds colliding, worlds of fantasy, emotion, and memory. They show that sex can be a poem, a dream, a story told in touches and sighs, lit by the glow of creativity. And for those lucky enough to be invited into this imaginative realm, the experience is transformative. What begins as physical connection becomes something far greater, an immersion into a universe of feeling, crafted with tenderness, artistry, and love. Best zodiac matches for friendship that can grow into more. For Cancer, intimacy rarely begins with physical attraction alone. Unlike signs who thrive on sparks, adrenaline, or sudden infatuation, Cancer builds their bond slowly, carefully, with the patience of someone constructing a home. Friendship, for them, is the soil from which desire grows, and without that foundation, passion may feel unstable or incomplete. They need trust, consistency, and a sense of familiarity before opening themselves fully to another person. Because of this, two signs stand out as particularly well suited to becoming not just Cancer's friends but their eventual lovers, Taurus and Pisces. These connections don't rush, they bloom, evolving from camaraderie into devotion, from laughter into intimacy, from a shared glass of wine into a night of deep vulnerability. Taurus is perhaps one of the most natural companions for Cancer. Where Cancer is the nurturer, Taurus is the builder. Both appreciate comfort, sensuality, and the small pleasures of life that others might overlook. In a friendship, this manifests as long dinners, cozy nights in, or simple moments spent appreciating beauty together. Taurus's steady energy reassures Cancer, who can often feel tossed about by emotional tides. Taurus rarely rushes or pressures, they take their time, and this patience is like balm to Cancer's sometimes anxious heart. Over time, Cancer begins to trust that Taurus is not going anywhere, that this is someone who will not vanish at the first sign of vulnerability. When friendship between Taurus and Cancer transitions into romance, it does so with a natural inevitability. There's rarely a dramatic explosion of passion. Rather, it's a slow burn, a steady warmth that builds until both recognize that what they have is more than companionship. Taurus brings physical sensuality to the bond, an appreciation for touch, food, scent, and the pleasures of the body, while Cancer adds emotional depth, tenderness, and an almost maternal instinct to care for their lover. In bed, this balance becomes extraordinary. Taurus grounds Cancer's moods with steady, indulgent affection, while Cancer ensures that Taurus feels cherished and emotionally supported. It's not just passion they share, it's comfort, loyalty, and the promise of consistency. Equally magnetic, though in a different way, is the bond between Cancer and Pisces. As fellow water signs, they understand one another intuitively, often without words. Their friendship tends to form quickly, as though they recognize in each other a kindred spirit. Both are sensitive, imaginative, and deeply emotional, though Pisces tends to drift in dreams while Cancer anchors in reality. Together, they form a balance. Pisces inspires Cancer to embrace fantasy, while Cancer provides Pisces with the emotional safety to express themselves without fear of judgment. When this friendship deepens into romance, the connection can feel otherworldly. There is a softness, a gentleness that defines their union. Physical intimacy between Cancer and Pisces rarely feels like lust alone. It feels like two souls merging, like entering a shared dream. They communicate in sighs, in silences, in the unspoken language of intuition. For Pisces, who often seeks someone to understand their shifting inner world, Cancer is a safe harbor. For Cancer, who longs for someone to share their emotional intensity, Pisces is the perfect mirror. The result is a bond that feels timeless, as though they've known each other across lifetimes. What makes Taurus and Pisces particularly important for Cancer is not only their sexual compatibility but their ability to provide the emotional prelude that Cancer needs before passion can flourish. Cancer does not dive headfirst into intimacy. They step carefully, testing the water, waiting to feel safe. Both Taurus and Pisces naturally provide this safety in different ways. Taurus offers stability, loyalty, and consistency. Pisces offers empathy, emotional resonance, and imagination. Both give Cancer the confidence to shed their protective shell, revealing the passion and devotion they keep hidden from the world. It is also worth noting how friendships with these signs often feel like love stories in disguise. A Cancer and Taurus friendship may begin with shared meals, laughter, and evenings spent talking about dreams. A Cancer and Pisces friendship may begin with creative conversations, music, or art, with the two losing hours in each other's company. And while outsiders may see only friendship, underneath, something deeper is always building. When it finally tips into romance, it feels natural, inevitable, as though it was always meant to happen. These relationships also highlight Cancer's need for partners who can meet them halfway emotionally. With Taurus, the grounding is so solid that Cancer feels safe to explore their own depths without fear of rejection. With Pisces, the emotional connection is so profound that Cancer feels not only safe but understood. Together, These friendships turned romances give Cancer exactly what they crave. The sense that intimacy is not built on fleeting sparks but on a foundation strong enough to last. In the end, Taurus and Pisces are not just Cancer's best matches for friendship that grows into more. They are the signs who remind Cancer that love does not have to be rushed, that true intimacy is built brick by brick, wave by wave, moment by moment. They show that passion is not just a fire that burns bright and fast, but a flame that grows steadily, fueled by loyalty, tenderness, and trust. With these signs, Cancer finds not only a lover but a partner, not only passion but sanctuary, not only desire but a home for their heart. The challenge of darker moods. Every tide eventually recedes, and every wave that rises high will one day fall. For Cancer, whose sexuality is inseparable from their emotional state, this truth plays out with particular intensity. Their passion is not constant, not fixed, but deeply tied to how secure, loved, and appreciated they feel. When their heart is full, they overflow with tenderness, generosity, and fiery devotion. But when they feel unappreciated, overlooked, or wounded, that fire dims. They retreat inward, withdrawing their sensuality like the moon drawing the tide back into the sea. This withdrawal can puzzle, even frustrate partners who are used to more stable rhythms. For Cancer, however, it is not rejection, it is protection. The shell of the crab is not just a metaphor for their personality, it is a lived reality. When they hurt, they go inward, shielding themselves from further damage. This may mean turning away from physical intimacy, not because they no longer desire their partner, but because vulnerability suddenly feels too dangerous. To open their body while their heart is raw feels unbearable. Instead, they wait, pulling back, seeking the comfort of solitude until they can trust again. To an unknowing partner, this retreat can feel like abandonment or punishment. A lover might misinterpret Cancer's silence as disinterest or even anger, when in reality, it is often fear. Cancer is not rejecting their partner but processing emotions that run deeper than words. They need time, space, and reassurance to work through feelings of insecurity or hurt. Like the moon hidden behind storm clouds, they remain present but obscured, waiting for the moment when light can safely break through. This cycle, though natural to Cancer, can create challenges in sexual relationships. Partners who crave consistency may feel destabilized, unsure of where they stand, constantly questioning why passion flows one day and disappears the next. Misunderstandings can multiply quickly, especially if a partner interprets Cancer's withdrawal as punishment rather than self-protection. What Cancer needs in these moments is not accusation or pressure, but patience and empathy. They long for someone who will hold space for their shifting tides, someone who won't mistake their silence for rejection but instead see it as a call for tenderness. When handled with care, these darker moods pass, and Cancer reemerges with renewed intensity, often even more affectionate than before. The partner who stands by them through the ebb is rewarded with the flood of their love when it returns. But when mishandled, when their vulnerability is mocked, ignored, or dismissed, Cancer can spiral deeper into withdrawal. They may develop emotional dependency, clinging to reassurance as though their very sense of worth depends on it. Or they may fall into jealousy, interpreting small slights or innocent actions as confirmation of their fears. At its most difficult, this cycle can lead to passive-aggressive behavior in sexual relationships. A Cancer who feels neglected but cannot articulate their pain directly may withhold intimacy, not as conscious manipulation, but as an unconscious test. Will you fight for me? Do you love me enough to notice I've gone quiet? Will you reach into my shell and coax me back out? For their partner, this test can feel exhausting, but for Cancer, it is often their only way of gauging love when insecurity clouds their clarity. This is why patience is not optional when loving Cancer, it is essential. They require a partner who understands that moods ebb and flow, that desire cannot be forced, and that reassurance is not weakness but the water they need to thrive. A gentle word, a soft touch, a reminder of loyalty, these are the small but powerful acts that bring them back into emotional alignment. Once they feel secure again, their passion doesn't just return. It returns magnified, as though gratitude fuels an even stronger desire to give themselves fully. But what happens when a partner cannot weather these tides? Frustration builds. Intimacy begins to feel like a battlefield of tests and misunderstandings. Cancer, sensing their partner's impatience, retreats further, creating a cycle of distance that is hard to break. The relationship becomes strained, not because love is absent, but because both partners are caught in the storm of unmet needs and unspoken fears. Yet the beauty of Cancer's darker moods is that they are not permanent. Just as the moon always returns to fullness, so too does Cancer return to passion once the storm has passed. Their cycles are part of who they are, a rhythm of vulnerability and strength, retreat and re-emergence. For those willing to accept this rhythm, intimacy with Cancer becomes not a frustration but a profound journey, one that requires trust, resilience, and empathy. In the end, the challenge of Cancer's moods is the very thing that makes their love so real. They do not pretend to be constant when they are not. They do not fake passion when their heart is hurting. Instead, they honor their truth, even when it is difficult. And while this truth may be challenging, it is also deeply human. To love Cancer is to love the tides, to stand on the shore knowing that sometimes the waves rush toward you, sometimes they recede, but always they return. The signs Cancer struggles with sexually. Not every rhythm in the zodiac flows in harmony with Cancer's tides. For a sign so deeply tied to feeling, trust, and the subtleties of emotional intimacy, certain partnerships can feel like trying to dance with a partner who insists on moving to an entirely different beat. What feels natural to one becomes dissonant to the other. This does not mean impossibility. No connection in astrology is truly doomed, but it does mean friction, frustration, and the need for extraordinary compromise. Two signs in particular, Aries and Aquarius, often challenge Cancer in ways that can leave them feeling unseen, unappreciated, and even lonely in the very moments that should draw them closest together. Aries represents fire in its most direct form. Bold, impulsive, and hungry for experience, Aries enters intimacy the same way they enter life, headfirst, with energy that can border on recklessness. For Aries, sex is an adventure, a conquest, a thrill to be pursued and satisfied. They rarely linger in hesitation, and they often thrive on the excitement of the chase. To Aries, waiting feels unnatural, unnecessary, even boring. But to Cancer, whose desire blooms slowly and requires emotional nourishment, Aries' fiery approach can feel overwhelming. The problem isn't passion, there is plenty of that between Cancer and Aries. In fact, the sheer magnetism of Aries can initially attract Cancer, drawing them in with charisma, energy, and intensity. The trouble begins when Aries bypasses the emotional prelude Cancer needs. Cancer doesn't just want foreplay in the physical sense, they want emotional foreplay. Soft words, safety, gestures of care that prepare the heart before the body follows. When Aries rushes past this stage, Cancer can feel used, as though their body was desired but their soul was left behind. Over time, this difference in pace can leave Cancer feeling emotionally abandoned. Aries may believe that showing up with intensity is enough, while Cancer longs for slowness, nurturing, and patience. What Cancer experiences as love, Aries sometimes sees as hesitation. This misunderstanding can create a gap that no amount of physical chemistry can close. Without conscious effort, Cancer may withdraw into their shell, while Aries grows impatient with what feels like constant need for reassurance. The sexual connection, while fiery in bursts, often burns too quickly and leaves both dissatisfied. Aquarius, on the other hand, presents an entirely different challenge. Where Aries is fiery and impulsive, Aquarius is cerebral, detached, and fascinated by experimentation. They approach intimacy with curiosity, often seeing it as an exploration of possibilities rather than an expression of emotion. To Aquarius, sex can be playful, inventive, or intellectually stimulating. They may enjoy novelty, roleplay, or trying new things simply for the experience. But for Cancer, who craves closeness, security, and reassurance above all else, this approach can feel alien. Cancer doesn't want to feel like an experiment or a puzzle to be solved. They want to feel adored, needed, and emotionally safe. When Aquarius brings detachment into the bedroom, Cancer often feels the absence of soul. Even if the act is adventurous, even if the variety is endless, Cancer is left with a hollow ache afterward, longing for the warmth of tenderness that Aquarius so often withholds. This mismatch is not about lack of attraction, it is about lack of depth. Cancer yearns for a lover who lingers in the emotional space, while Aquarius often prefers to keep things light, breezy, and free from too much sentiment. The independence of Aquarius can also unsettle Cancer. Cancer thrives in union, in knowing their partner is emotionally tethered to them, while Aquarius resists feeling confined. What Aquarius interprets as freedom, Cancer interprets as distance. The result is that even during physical intimacy, Cancer may feel alone, as though their partner is present in body but not in spirit. Few things wound Cancer more deeply than loneliness in a moment meant for connection, and with Aquarius, this risk is painfully high. Still, it is important to acknowledge that neither Aries nor Aquarius is doomed to fail with Cancer. Love, patience, and mutual understanding can bridge even the widest gaps. Aries, if willing to slow down and honor Cancer's need for emotional security, can learn that passion deepens when paired with tenderness. Likewise, Cancer, if willing to embrace a little of Aries' spontaneity, can discover the thrill of letting go. Aquarius, if willing to step out of their intellectual detachment and meet Cancer with vulnerability, can experience intimacy on a level they rarely allow themselves to reach. And Cancer, if open to Aquarius's playful experimentation, can learn that variety doesn't have to mean lack of depth. But these compromises require effort on both sides, and often, the imbalance proves too heavy to sustain long-term. For Cancer, whose deepest need is to feel emotionally fused with their lover, these pairings often leave them unfulfilled. They may enjoy sparks of passion, bursts of excitement, or moments of curiosity, but the core craving, for emotional closeness that fuels their sexuality, remains unmet. Over time, this lack can erode the connection, leaving Cancer longing for something steadier, deeper, and more attuned to their rhythms. Ultimately, the signs Cancer struggles with sexually reveal the essence of who they are. A lover who cannot separate the heart from the body, who cannot feel fulfilled by passion without tenderness, who cannot thrive in intimacy without trust. Aries and Aquarius both challenge this essence, each in their own way, one by rushing past it, the other by bypassing it altogether. And while neither pairing is impossible, both demand levels of compromise that often exhaust rather than nourish Cancer's sensitive soul. The legacy of Cancer in love and desire. What makes Cancer unforgettable as a lover is not something you can capture in a single phrase or moment. It is not merely the tenderness of their touch or the intensity of their passion, though those things matter. It is the way they weave emotion into everything they do. For Cancer, intimacy is never only about the body, it is about memory, trust, vulnerability, and healing. They create a space where love feels like sanctuary, where pleasure becomes not just physical satisfaction but soul-deep connection. To be loved by Cancer is to feel that every encounter carries meaning, that every caress is a declaration, and that every kiss is a promise. They do not simply touch your skin, they touch your soul. Cancer leaves an imprint because their love is vast, oceanic, tidal. Unlike some lovers, who may be remembered for novelty, surprise, or even recklessness, Cancer is remembered for depth. You may forget the exact details of a night, the clothes, the setting, the music, but you will never forget the way Cancer made you feel. Safe, wanted, cherished, understood. They write themselves into the emotional memory, etching a permanent mark that lingers long after the affair has ended. This is their legacy. They turn intimacy into art. With them, sex becomes more than friction or impulse. It becomes healing, a balm for wounds you didn't know you carried. It becomes storytelling, an exchange of emotions told through the body. It becomes connection, two souls merging, recognizing one another in a place beyond words. Lovers often emerge from time with Cancer transformed, not because the act itself was revolutionary, but because the feeling was. Cancer teaches that the most powerful passion is not always about novelty or experimentation. It is about presence, about being truly seen and truly held. For Cancer, sex is the truest language of love. It is how they say, "I see you. I cherish you. I trust you enough to show you every hidden part of me." Their intimacy is an offering, a gift of devotion. Once they open that door, they rarely close it. They give generously, consistently, with a kind of loyalty that can astonish. Their partner becomes more than a lover. They become family, home, the one place where Cancer feels safe to set down the weight of their emotions and simply be. And yet, this same depth means that betrayal wounds them in ways few others can understand. When trust is broken, Cancer does not rage outwardly. They do not fight to reclaim what has been lost. Instead, they retreat, like the moon slipping behind clouds, leaving only darkness in its place. One moment, their love feels like a warm ocean. The next, it vanishes, leaving their partner stranded on dry shore. Lovers who betray Cancer often find themselves haunted by the absence of what once felt like home. The silence that follows is as memorable as the warmth that came before. This duality, boundless devotion paired with the ability to vanish completely, is part of what makes Cancer's legacy so striking. Their love is not casual, not replaceable. It is absolute, and when it is gone, its absence is felt as keenly as its presence once was. Few lovers are mourned so deeply, because few give so completely. Cancer's intimacy is unforgettable precisely because it demands nothing less than total vulnerability, from themselves and from those they choose to love. It is also worth noting that Cancer's legacy is not confined to the physical act of sex. It extends into the way they make their partner feel outside the bedroom, cared for, understood, nurtured. Their sensuality seeps into the daily rhythms of life, into the way they cook for someone, listen to them, or offer comfort during difficult times. For Cancer, love and desire are inseparable from daily living. To be their lover is to be enveloped in a web of tenderness that stretches far beyond moments of passion. Over time, lovers of Cancer often look back not on isolated encounters, but on an entire atmosphere of love. They remember how Cancer made a home for them, both literally and metaphorically. They remember the warmth of emotional security that turned ordinary nights into extraordinary memories. They remember how sex was not just passion, but part of a larger, enduring story of connection. This holistic approach to love is rare, and it is why Cancer's legacy outlasts most other signs. Of course, this legacy comes with weight. Not every partner is ready for the intensity Cancer offers. Some may feel smothered, overwhelmed by the depth of their devotion. Others may crave novelty and freedom more than the safety and consistency Cancer provides. But even for those who leave, even for those who move on, the memory of Cancer lingers. Their love is not easily replaced, because it is not easily found elsewhere. Ultimately, Cancer's legacy in love and desire is this: they show us that intimacy can be sacred. That sex can heal, that love can feel like home. They remind us that true connection is not fleeting but profound, not shallow but transformative. To be touched by Cancer is to be seen at your most vulnerable and cherished anyway. And long after they are gone, long after the details fade, what remains is the memory of that safety, that warmth, that oceanic devotion. This is why Cancer is unforgettable, not because they burn the brightest, or because they dazzle with novelty, but because they love with depth. They weave their soul into the act of passion, and in doing so, they leave behind something indelible: the memory of being truly, completely, and unconditionally loved. So when you think of Cancer in the realm of sex, imagine the tides, ever shifting, sometimes calm, sometimes wild, but always carrying you somewhere deeper than you expected. To love them is to dive in willingly, to trust the waves, and to discover that intimacy, when nurtured, is not just pleasure, it's transformation. To picture Cancer in the realm of intimacy is to picture the ocean itself, vast, unpredictable, endlessly layered, capable of gentle caresses and overwhelming storms. Their sexual nature cannot be pinned down to a single trait, because like the tides, it is always in motion. Some nights, they are calm, rocking their partner with tenderness, offering the comfort of safety and the reassurance of steady waves. On other nights, they are wild, driven by currents of passion that surprise even themselves. This duality, the balance of softness and intensity, is at the very heart of Cancer's legacy in sex and love. They don't just give you moments, they carry you into an experience, and once you've been swept into their waters, you are never quite the same again. To be loved by Cancer is to surrender to these tides willingly. You cannot fight the pull, and you cannot demand the ocean be calm when it chooses to be wild. What you can do is trust. Trust that their moods, their tenderness, and even their silences are all part of a larger rhythm. When you lean into that rhythm instead of resisting it, you find yourself carried to places you never imagined intimacy could reach. It stops being about performance, conquest, or routine. It becomes about transformation, the alchemy of two people merging in trust and vulnerability. Cancer's intimacy is transformative because it is rooted in emotion. They never separate love from desire or affection from touch. Every embrace is more than contact, it is a confession. Every kiss is more than passion, it is a promise. To them, sex is not a game or a pastime. It is a way of saying, I see you. I feel you. I am willing to give you all of me. That willingness is rare, and it creates a depth of connection that leaves their lovers forever changed. The shifting quality of Cancer's passion can at first seem unsettling to those who crave predictability. Their moods affect their desire, and their desire affects the way they express themselves. But this is precisely what makes them unforgettable. You never walk into a night with Cancer knowing exactly what awaits. Sometimes, it is the comfort of waves softly lapping against your soul. Other times, it is the crashing intensity of a storm that drowns you in passion. Either way, you emerge from the experience carried deeper than you expected, more vulnerable, more alive. When nurtured, this intimacy becomes a force of healing. Cancer is not just concerned with their own pleasure but with creating a sanctuary where their partner feels wholly accepted. They bring tenderness to places that once carried pain. They offer reassurance where insecurity once lingered. They create a sense of safety so profound that even the act of letting go, of surrendering fully to the moment, becomes natural. In this way, sex with Cancer does more than satisfy the body. It soothes the heart, rewrites the memory of what intimacy can be, and restores faith in connection itself. And yet, the transformation Cancer offers does not come without risk. To dive into their ocean is to give up a measure of control. It requires vulnerability, patience, and openness. It requires a willingness to accept that love will not always feel steady, but it will always feel real. Some may find this too much, too demanding, too overwhelming. But for those who embrace it, the rewards are extraordinary. They discover that pleasure, in Cancer's world, is not fleeting but enduring, not surface level but soul deep. This is why Cancer's sexual presence is often described as unforgettable. It is not just about passion, though passion is abundant. It is not just about devotion, though devotion runs deep. It is about transformation. They change the way you understand intimacy. They teach you that sex can be more than an act. It can be a journey, a tide that carries you beyond your own limits into a space where love and desire merge into something bigger, something timeless. So when you think of Cancer in this realm, don't think of predictability, don't think of mechanics. Think of water, think of tides, think of the moon that governs them. Imagine the calm surface one night, and the crashing storm the next. Imagine being held so gently you forget the world, and then consumed so completely you forget yourself. Imagine leaving each encounter not just satisfied but altered, carrying with you the imprint of safety, passion, and understanding. That is Cancer's legacy. That is their gift. That is why to love them, to truly love them, is to dive in without fear and to trust the waves. Because in the end, sex with Cancer is not simply about pleasure, it is about transformation. It is the moment when vulnerability becomes power, when tenderness becomes ecstasy, and when two souls, like tides meeting in the moonlight, merge into one. And that, more than anything else, is why once you have loved a Cancer, once you have surrendered to their waters, you will never forget the way they carried you deeper than you ever thought you could go.